Here 39 years as a civil servant. I actually was there 40 years. The first year I was finishing up graduate school. So I've been there a long time. Really, I did live 6 months down in Huntsville, Alabama on a career development program, but pretty much spent my whole time there in NASA Langley. Came up through the ranks. If you'd asked me 39 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said, hey, my aspiration is to be center director, and one day I'm going to be center director. I started as a researcher doing materials research. I was very happy doing that, but one thing led to another. And I will tell you, I've had a pretty fortunate and blessed career. I've done things never thought I'd have the opportunity to do, make an impact in both aeronautics in space, and it's been a very blessed career. So I've had a lot of people ask me, well then, why are you interested in this job? And so this is what I tell people. Couple reasons. First of all, I'm got a passion for education. I have about 300 or 400 students in any given year come through the center in various programs. And so I spent the career, I've been very blessed, and to me it's all about how do I kind of play that forward or give back, if you will. Got a strong sense of service, so here's an opportunity to play back. And I truly, when I said I got a passion for education, students are our future. They're my future pipeline at where I'm at now, and they are the country's future. So this is a great opportunity to feel like I can take a skill set that I've developed over the years, play it forward, and contribute and make a positive impact to the next generation. Like I say, I have lots of students coming in. When I talk to them about things we're doing, going to the moon, going to Mars, I look up and say, hey, I'm not doing that. You all are going to be doing that. You're going to be going to Mars. And so interacting and impacting the future workforce that are going to do these great things is a passion of mine. Other passion, the Commonwealth of Virginia, lifelong resident. Grew up in Richmond, went to Virginia Tech out in Southwest Virginia, been down in Tidewater for the last 40 years. Virginia is an amazing state, has so much to offer, so many opportunities for economic development all across the state, really here in Tidewater, and especially over on the shore. It is Virginia's new Space Coast on the shore, and I think the community college can play a critical role in that. So that's another one of my passions, being part of that ecosystem of economic development in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So when you look at that, passion for students, passion for education, passion for seeing the Commonwealth do great things. I looked at this opportunity and I said, wow, this kind of matches all of those things up. So, and I think I can add value. I'm the kind of person, I don't want to just, I'm not running from something in the job I got. I want to go do something that I'm excited about and I can believe I can excel at. So that's what brings me here. I would love to hear your questions. And like Jeff said, I might have some questions for y'all, but I'll let y'all get started. So please, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And so when you pose your questions, if you would give just a very brief overview of yourself and the entity if applicable that you represent, that'll give David a great understanding of who's come to the table today to participate in the town hall. Okay? So, Robert.
Jeff, thank you. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're quite.
My name is Robert Crockett. I'm on the Accomack County Board of Supervisors.
Very good.
Accomack Board, the county in general, has a close relationship with the community college. The new facility you're seeing being constructed here on site now, Accomack County has $2/3 of $1 million invested in that for the site work. And Northampton County, our neighboring county, has like $300,000 and some invested. So it's about $1 million investment between both counties for that site work. So we definitely have a close relationship, and we contribute. We allocate a small amount of funding to the college, nothing big, but we do have connection. So 2 questions. One is, what would be your goals for your first 12 months if you're chosen? And second question would be, from your experience, have you ever been put in charge of a department where something needs to happen to keep our status? In other words, the community college just went through a study decline in enrollment and so forth, and within the next 3 years, things have to happen
Yeah.
to keep our status as it is now. So second question would be, how would you address that, and have you ever been in a situation where you had to do something fast?
Yeah. So, try to hit both of those. So first of all, kind of the vision for the college. I think there's tremendous opportunity here on the Eastern Shore. There is no other, four-year institution in Virginia on the Eastern Shore. So my vision is the community college can be that hub, both as a provider of workforce, training students, whether they go on to just a 2-year degree or go on to a 4-year degree, be that hub of activity on the shore here, or reach out to the partners in the community. The aerospace business, that's one I talk a lot about because I know a fair amount about that one, and I do think there are tremendous opportunities. Getting back to what did I do the first 12 months, and it relates to the second part of your question, there is this reboot plan. All right, so first 12 months, and I just had a great dialogue with the faculty and staff. Got a lot of good input about, okay, how's everybody feeling about this? What do we need to do? So that first 12 months is laying out the next level of detail in this reboot plan. It's a good level, but I talked a lot to them about, hey, got to manage this as a project. And any good project management plan has the next level of details, schedules, are you making progress? That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is building the internal team. As I told the faculty and staff, this has to be a shared vision. It's going to take everybody to do this. This is hard. It's not easy. To your point, there are changes that have to be made, and there's going to take a commitment to make those changes. And so get the team committed to make those changes, get the next level of detail down with that plan, and then check in and see how we're making progress. And I went through a whole kind of dialogue about how you manage a project and the steps in doing that. It's not hard, but it does take a certain amount of discipline to do that. And then the other piece, and I heard it just a few minutes ago, in communication. So communicating what's going on. And communication is a two-way street, right? Communication is telling people what's happening, but communication is also listening to people, what are their needs. So a big part of what I would do as president is be out there in the community. Understand what does the community think about the reboot plan? What are your needs? What are we meeting? Is the reboot plan as described at the top level, is that going to meet everybody's needs? So it would be getting the internal team together, laying out the next level of details, but in parallel, getting out with the community, hearing their input, letting them know what's going on, having frequent communication both internally to the college, externally to our stakeholders all across the shore in the business community. So, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you for the question. Very good. Yeah.
President Jenkins.
I'm Richard Jenkins. I was Dean of Students at this college for 25 years. I was president for 10 years. I've been retired 14 years now. So you've already sort of given me an indication as to why you applied, some of the reasons that you were interested in this institution. If I remember correctly from your bio, your resume, you currently manage a budget of almost $900 million,
Yeah.
workforce of 3,400 or so.
Yeah.
You obviously are aware of the size of this institution, of the budget. Do you think you have a really good idea of the economy of scale, the challenges that you would face at this institution? Have you ever been in a job where you're probably going to have as few resources and as few personnel to work with as you're going to have here?
So great question, and you're pretty right, spot on the numbers, so good for that. So a couple things. So haven't always been center director, so I came up through the ranks over 40 years. So I've managed and been responsible for things that had much smaller scope. So yeah, I think your question to scaling that, yes, I think I have a good appreciation for how things scale. Some things scale, and there's some commonalities in the way you approach problems, regardless of whether it's an 800 900, 800, and actually my FY20 budget is 840 some million. We just got those numbers about a month ago, but there's some common things you do, whether it's 800 million or 8 million or 800,000 or $8. There's some common things, and then there's some not so common things. So I think I have an appreciation for that, and so couple things. So yeah, we actually had a similar activity that was involved with the center back in the early 2000s. I call it, it was the burning platform, if you will, but same kind of thing. My mission dollars were going down, my institutional costs were going up. How we're going to get those two things in line, not dissimilar to what you got here. So did things like zero-based review. In our case, the part of the answer was we made efficiencies. We've gone to a lot of shared services activities. I've done shared services within the center, and the agency now is going to a lot of shared services. So that's one way to attract the cost dollar, but to attract the rising costs, but also understanding what those mission critical things are. Don't cut those things that are actually helping you raise revenue. So it scales, and back to your point of, hey, I've got a average $900 million budget. So the point I would make about that, I have lots of people thinking that's their $900 million budget. So actually, my discretionary budget out of that $900 million is in the without divulging, it's in the single million dollar thing. So yes, I do understand how that scales. That $900 million, a lot of it is to feed the institution and do the mission. So the missions give me, hey, Dave, deliver this payload to launch on this rocket to do this mission. I don't have a lot of flexibility in all those dollars, so I think I've got a good appreciation for dealing with the fundamentals that cut across balancing revenues and costs at any scale, and given the smaller scale of things I actually deal with on a normal basis, I think translate pretty well. So yeah, and the other point I would add to that is getting out and getting ground truth too. That's one thing that I think that I've got a good appreciation for coming up through just about not every job at NASA Langley, but I've had most jobs there. So I've seen a broad perspective of what the center does. So I have a good appreciation in my current role that you can, as director or as president or anything, you can sometimes get in a bubble and not understand what the ground truth is. And so I think being down on ground truth and working a lot of my career at the ground truth level, I've got a good appreciation for that. I think I will bring that to this problem too. And one of the things we just talked about at the faculty staff meeting was, okay, how's everybody else feeling on this? So yeah, I think very transferable skills, and I'm looking excited. I'd be excited for the opportunity to do that. So thank you.
Ms. Barnes.
Oh, I wondered if you're aware of, I assume you are, the caliber range of students here. And then my other, I don't know if you're aware that there are 4 solar panels sitting on a flatbed truck out there, which nobody has used forever and ever. And I just wondered if you're familiar with Wise County and what they're doing with solar for the future. And it includes their colleges there and stuff like that.
Ms. Barron's a resident in Franktown and an advocate for the Eastern Shore, all things in general. Is that fair? Okay.
So I'm not sure I totally understand your first part of the question about
Oh,
the
the
caliber.
caliber and range, I mean,
Yeah.
at least, I'm not in on the ground floor here, but I see a huge range here. I mean, we're doing GED programs, we're doing,
Yes.
giving certificates, and
Yes,
and
so,
so a
okay.
lot of kids are moving on and doing 4
Yeah, so there are various
years.
programs offered here, both, like you say, transition to a 4-year school, 2-year degree, certificates,
I mean,
all the
you
way
just
to
have a-
continuing
yeah.
education. So, yes, I am aware of the broad range of services offered here. Going to the solar panels, so I do have some relationships out in Wise County. So Jack Kennedy, I don't know whether you know, he's like clerk of courts out in, you're talking Wise County, Virginia, out in
Yeah.
southwest Virginia?
Well, they've had a big emphasis on solar.
Yeah.
We're not gonna compete with them, we're way over here, so
Yeah.
it seems like maybe we could copy them a little bit.
Yeah, so that would be something I'd have to get more details. I don't know anything about the solar panel sitting on the flatbed truck. I just don't. I can't answer that question.
I mean, I'm
did
looking
see-
for potential jobs here.
Yeah, no, that's
Can I
so,
add?
yeah, sure,
Real
please.
quick, I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
Okay.
Um,
take it.
I'm Eve Belote, and we actually, I'm not sure which solar panels, but we do actually have solar panels that have been installed for the new building.
Yeah,
Well,
And
Yeah.
so,
that's not, I'm thinking of training the kids to do this. This is the future, and I think they were brought here originally. I talked to somebody years ago,
okay.
just train the kids.
Oh, okay, I thought you were saying, okay, I just wanted to clarify. I didn't want people to think that we, because we do actually, we are using some solar
Yeah,
power
I
for
saw
the new
them.
building, so.
I saw them this morning.
I'll also interject that they were recently utilized by Accomack County Public Schools for some STEM programming as well.
Yes.
Well, with Sean Caio, I know, that was good. Linda Glover let him borrow them for a while,
Mhm.
so that was good. But
Okay.
anyway, I'm just thinking about training kids.
Sure.
Okay.
It seems like there
And
are tons of jobs out there in
alternative,
solar,
and alternative energies.
for
And
instance.
maybe even beyond solar, I would argue, in wind.
Which seems very practical, and I think we've lost maybe some of the practicality here
Okay.
over time.
Yeah.
Except for the nurses program, that's really super.
So okay, yes. So the practicality of the programs with, being delivered at the college maybe is what you're, well, yeah. So I would say, hey, part of that is getting out and understanding what those workforce needs are. I talked about getting out in the community. And that's why I'm so happy to see all y'all here this afternoon. I think part of my job as president is understanding what those community needs are. We had this discussion at lunch. Part of my job as director is not managing all the day-to-day down and in stuff. I've got a great team. I help them solve their problems if they're having problems, but a lot of my job as center director, and I would think a lot of my job, if I was selected as president here at the community college, is the up and out. So understanding those needs, talking to businesses, what are the relevant workforce needs? How can we best serve the community? At the end of the day, it's a community college, so we got to serve the community. And part of the president's job, in my mind, is being part of the community, getting out, talking to the community, understanding those needs, and finding out what we do need to do. So, yeah. Thank you.
So Ms. Behrens, I think part of your question and what you're getting at is how can we be more resourceful to the community needs in general, as was restated by David. And sounds like you may have been in on our meeting at lunch, which you weren't, where it prompted some answers that David provided, your ideas on makerspace here at the college, as well as the Wallops campus that is virtually gone unutilized as far as
Yeah.
the research part. So that may add some validity to the point she's getting at.
Yeah, did you say the Maker Lab?
But,
Like you'd have that. So you'd have the 3D printers and all of that?
so I'll let David respond to
Oh,
that
yeah.
because he was the one discussing it during the
Oh, yeah.
board
Okay,
interview.
that's yeah. Okay.
Well, good. So, yeah, actually, as I was touring the new building, I was asking Joe, hey, is there going to be a makerspace and some 3D printers in there? I think that's a good opportunity. One of the things we talked about at lunch, I think there's a tremendous opportunity for new startup businesses, entrepreneurs on the Eastern Shore. So how can the college here be part of helping that? So what do they need? They might need a space, they might need some basic business services. So can we be part of helping generate entrepreneurial startups? I think the opportunity is there. Another thing we discussed at lunch, maybe a little farther outside the box, was we were, I was talking last night as we were driving around about coffee and Starbucks, but it didn't dawn on me, why do people go to these internet cafes, right? They might not have internet at home, they go to a coffee shop, they want to hook up. Why can't we have that at the college? Why can't we be an internet hub? We got a new building, it's gonna have Wi-Fi all over. Can we get a partnership with some kind of business, whatever, but we bring the community in. It's a Wi-Fi hub for the community. Maybe you bring a business in, and then, you know, once that starts, you get some partnerships going. So I think there are all kinds of opportunities to do things like that. Up on the research park that Jeff was talking about, up in the Wallops area, I think there's tremendous opportunities there. Can we get a location there? That's tied into the whole potential growth in the aerospace community. Rocket Labs is building a pad up there. I think if you look, and again, I've talked to you maybe too much about aerospace, but if you look at small sats, unmanned aerial systems, they can spawn a potential lot of new startups. You can cheaply collect lots of data, okay? Whether it be with an unmanned aerial system or a small sat, and then that data can be mined, and it can help the agricultural industry, power line inspections. There's a ton of things that people can take that data and then start figuring out, okay, how can I take that data, reach out and maybe start a business with it. I know my son, my youngest son, got a degree, a 2-year degree in IT from J. Sargent Reynolds in Richmond. He works for a company now that does just that. They take Landsat data, so it's publicly available data, NASA satellites, looking at topography and things like that, and they take that data, turn it into people say, hey, I need to know, you know, what's the rainfall here, what's the population density here. They take that data, turn it into real engineering information that people buy. I think there's tremendous opportunity over here to do exactly that same kind of thing. He started with a company that was 2 or 3 people that just got bought by a bigger company. So you do these things and it has a cascade effect on economic development. And I think the shore is ripe for those kind of activities. So. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah.
Barbara Johnson.
Barbara Johnson, former foundation board president for the college. Have you ever lived in a rural area?
Yes. Actually, so I've lived, so the NASA Research Center, Langley Research Center is in Hampton, but most of the 40 years I've been there, I've lived in Suffolk. And if you're familiar with Taiwan, that's across the river. I will tell you, 40 years ago, Suffolk was very, very rural. Now, I haven't changed, I still like rural areas. Suffolk has changed around me. It's not nearly as rural as it was 40 years ago. I wish I'd have bought a lot more, invested in a lot more real estate 40 years ago. I probably wouldn't be here standing here having this conversation with you today if I'd done that. But of course, 40 years ago, I didn't nearly have the resources available to do that. But yes, I love rural environment. That is something, you know, I was looking at potential opportunities. Location in a rural location was one of the things on my list, besides, you know, education, adding value, contributing to the Commonwealth. Yeah, rural is, I'm very in line with rural living. So, yeah, thanks for the question. In fact, we can talk about alpacas. We had a good discussion just a little while ago about alpacas, so we can talk about alpacas.
It's our new mascot.
Maybe we can get an answer.
Thanks.
Speaking of that, David, did you have a question for the crowd along the mascot line?
Yeah. So
And then we'll get to your general questions.
Yeah. So you were getting ready to raise your hand.
That's all right, I'll go ahead and do this.
Yeah. So I'll ask the same question I just asked the faculty and staff, and anybody can answer this. Do y'all know anything about the reboot plan? Ever heard of it? Think it's necessary? What? Yeah.
I don't know any details about the reboot plan, but it's needed
Okay.
because we need to get people on this campus.
Okay.
And with that, I'd like to ask you this question. It's
Sure.
a question that I already know the answer to. I know what your response will be.
Well,
And
no pressure.
seriously, I would bet on this with your
Okay.
career with NASA.
Yeah.
My question is, are you the type of person that will think out of the box, look out of the box to get more feet here? Because we
Yes.
would not have gone to the moon
Yes.
if NASA had not
Yes.
been thinking out of the box. So would you apply yourself that way?
Absolutely.
So
And-
let's not look at what we're doing, just what we're doing now.
Right.
What can we do that that has not been thought of before that's out of the box?
Absolutely. I have spent a career trying to push thinking out of the box, and I think that is one of the strengths I bring to this job. As a research center, that is my job. It's not worrying about necessarily what the current thing is. It's what are the technologies that we need 10, 15 years to do those missions that I'm doing down the road and work on those things now. So yes, I constantly think about that. The whole idea of setting up some kind of internet cafe on campus and trying to bring people in. That was a quick kind of one example of maybe some things that are a little out of the box. So I think, just a little more, it would be, I realize I don't have a traditional academic background. I think the fact that I do come from a different background gives me the opportunity to truly bring some things over that might be out of the box. So yeah, I'm very excited about the opportunities to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
For the.
You were supposed to pose a question to me, so I turned it over.
Yeah, so that's good. So.
But thank you for your answer.
No, but others on the reboot plan. I mean, kind of know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with the reboot plan. Pat Cody, I'm a retired entrepreneur. The reboot plan calls out pretty accurately in one section about attention to hospitality, aquaculture, which Northampton County considers their three fundamental businesses. And if you add poultry production and wallops on that, you have got Acamax. There's a little bit of movement on the hospitality, and there is now one unmanned vehicle certification course being taught here this last semester. But basically, this college is, and one of my issues with the college has been they have not had courses for their three major industries called out by their county. So if you're not training for the three underpinnings of the economy that your county's based on, what are you doing? And one of the examples I use on that is that in Tampa, St. Pete, you can't get a job in a hotel or a restaurant if you don't have a hospitality certificate.
Okay. All right.
How to serve, how to treat guests, how to encourage them to come back, how to encourage them to buy things. You're taught before you're hired. And so in the midst of the reboot, you have the issue of how do I answer all the criteria I'm going to have to deal with the next 3 years in the reboot. At the same time, working within a process that can take years to get approval out of Richmond to start a new course. And my observation would be that, particularly under this kind of financial pressure and constraint, it's going to be extremely difficult to push forward an innovative program. Doesn't matter whether it's solar or hospitality or what have you, when it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to see economic return on it, to build up the base and courses and the community interest for everybody saying, yeah, this is really where we want to be. And there are examples of doing that. The one that we often quote is Walla Walla, Washington's viniculture. Where they turned the economy, the entire region around because the community college became the major non-4-year school in viniculture in the country. So students go there from all over the country to attend their viniculture program. That started with one prof's idea, but didn't get off the ground in the first year. So it's how do you get the relationship with Richmond and with your other partners keep you alive long enough to bring something like that to fruition.
So, and not knowing all the details of exactly how this system works, the first thing that strikes me, that's an awful long time to get something, maybe I misunderstood your question, get a new class approved or a new offering approved. And so, I think maybe an easier way to answer it is it all gets back to communication. So there is a reboot plan, and we actually talked a little bit about this at the faculty and staff. But I think Kind of my job as president would be, hey, not just, okay, here's the plan, we got to figure it out, just go do A, B, and C and report on it every year. I know in my current job, my boss expects me to tell him, okay, well, how about this? How about this? This is what we really need. So part of my job as president would be to communicate back to Richmond and say, well, here's what I'm hearing out here. How about this? How does this fit into the constraints we have in the system? And again, I don't profess to be an expert at this point on all the constraints in that system and how that would work. But I think part of the job as a president is to also give feedback to Richmond. And all these things are two-way communication streets. You know, it works that way in my current job. I think my boss expects me to tell him, no, how about this? And same way going down. I expect people in the college to tell me, in the community to tell me, no, this is what the needs are. And then we have to have a conversation, because you can't do everything. You're right, there are tight financial times. And so we're gonna have to figure out, okay, what are those things that you can do that are gonna help actually drive revenue, right? You can't cut, it's easy to fall into a trap when you get into this, okay, costs are going up, revenue's going down. Well, what are the easy things to cut? Well, sometimes those easy things are things that are actually help you drive revenue, maybe, but to your point, maybe they have a little longer return on investment time. So how do you make the case for that? So I think it's communication. All of this gets down to communicating back to
I'll
Richmond.
reinforce your point with one of my more famous quotes.
Okay.
Corporations almost never cut their way to success.
Yeah, good point.
You know, the people who came in and cut, like Scott Paper, disappeared.
Mhm. It's definitely a balance.
So Pat didn't introduce himself. He's on the board of Go Virginia.
Oh,
And,
very good.
and was here on the shore. His genesis was being able to establish broadband with the Eastern Shore Virginia Broadband Authority. So
Excellent.
his question about, in terms of being able to correlate and thinking out of the box, true to form with what he's brought to the shore. So, Joe.
Very good, thank you.
My name is Joe Beatty. I come from quite a different background than folks here. I've got 44 years in engineering and advanced surveying, geospatial work,
Uh-huh,
but and most of it commercial.
right.
I retired as the corporate manager of survey for the global construction operations of Bechtel.
Oh,
And I took a hiatus, though, of about 8 or 9 years and went into the academic world because I was very concerned about the product we were getting in the profession. So I created one of the very first geospatial data fusion centers in California.
okay.
And then I went to ODU and worked in the TeleTechNet system and get that was the first ABET accreditation for an engineering school using online teaching methods. By accident, we ended up here on the shore in 2000.
Okay.
But in 2002, the dean of engineering let me work on the Virginia surveyors and I had gotten a line item in the Virginia budget for the Office of Spatial and Cartographic Information.
Mhm.
And I had convinced them that up here, because it's the download center for most of the remote sensing data, that's not DOD,
Mhm.
that we could expand on an idea I had worked with other folks in California, which was to create a geospatial environmental training center for all these folks that have to do data recovery during oil,
Mhm.
insurance investigations, that type of thing.
Mhm.
But then I went off to study finance, and then I went to UVA for a while.
Well,
But the reason for that is after I got introduced to the economy after the first 2 years here,
yeah.
we don't have enough people, especially since we export most of our kids,
Uh-huh.
to really maintain a community college. If you run the numbers, it's not enough. So we have to look at ways that we can become special
Uh-huh.
and attract dollars from outside.
Uh-huh.
So I'm working with ODU right now, and we're testing a water drone, a hydro drone, for
Okay.
near shore
Yeah.
shallow work.
Right, right.
And to train their people, I probably would use my at-home high-speed broadband to train the graduate students on how to run this system before they get up here. Now, we have a lot of people on the shore that have a huge amount of experience like I do, and now I happen to also have done years of online education. I can teach anywhere in the world.
Sure.
Survey and geospatial. I've never been able to convince the community college to get their act together and have high-speed internet enough that I could go into, for instance, the Teletechnet or the ODU structure, and then port that out across the world. These are types of specialties that we have here on the shore. I'm not the only person that's kind of experience. And we can export knowledge and make money to a much larger population than just here on the shore. And we can also become the epicenter for certain types of things, for instance, geospatial.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that we fly the LiDAR and have for many years over Greenland to measure the ice thickness. Some of the top LiDAR and microwave people are up in Wallace. Those folks can all help us with creating curriculums, for instance, to bring people here and train them. And then that leads to research. So there's been a real obstinacy about thinking about new approaches that bring money from outside into our economy and also attract people to come here to study with the different experts we have. So is that something that you think would be at all viable or worth investigating?
Yeah, so so there's a lot there.
Well, I've done a lot.
There's a lot there to unpack. And I would say we've got some of those LiDAR specialists at Langley as well. We were involved in a lot of those missions we're talking about. But I think it gets back to the question over here about thinking out of the box. So yeah, I'm certainly open to all those things. As I said at lunch, this is a bold challenge. It's going to require some bold action, and I think it's going to require maybe a bold pick that can think out of the box on some bold solutions to solve this problem. So I'm very open to that. I mean, the particulars.
And if you have the professional backing of like the professional land surveyors in Virginia, the legislature will listen to a line item in the budget to help fund that.
So in short, yes, I am very open. I think this does require some out-of-the-box thinking, because you raised some good points. If it's, given the current constraints, if that's an untractable problem, okay, how can we look at the problem different to bring some different, say, resources and bodies to the shore? So I'm very open to that.
Joe, real quick, what is that line item? How much was funded? in the budget?
$50,000 a year.
50?
And
Thank you.
that was in old dollars. It'd be more now.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thanks.
Roberta, Dick, we'll come back to you if you don't mind. Roberta had a question from earlier.
I'm Roberta Newman. I'm the current president of the foundation here at the college.
Good.
And my question for you is that all of the things that people are talking about, obviously, and that you've been talking about, are things that are more state-of-the-art, they're advanced, they're not necessarily what we get provided funding for at the basic level when we get a new building, for example. If we really want the kinds of things we're talking about, and certainly one way is to go for outside funders and people around the country and think globally, and I'm all for that kind of thing. However, I also think that we've got a lot of resources on the shore and that we have to tap into those, and that we have to keep in mind, as you were saying, the diversity of students that we have who may or may not be ready for this kind of thing. So my real question is, in terms of, I think one of the main roles of the president here is basically the role of development, both fundraising, fund development, outreach to the community. And I would wonder if you could talk a little bit about your experiences in raising funds and also how you see the scope and components of an effective development program.
Yeah, so, very good. So, fundraising, as it would translate to the community college, as a federal employee, I don't go out and independently raise funds to support my activities. But I will tell you that a lot of what we do is competing with a limited source of funds in an overall NASA budget, okay? And so in that competition, you've got to bring a compelling idea, sell that compelling idea, and have the person with the funds see the value in that idea. And to me, that's kind of the essence of fundraising, right? I mean, you've got to convince somebody that, hey, this is a worthwhile thing to do, and here's the ultimate value that you're going to get by doing this. So I'm very comfortable in that environment, and I'll just share one story that I think we've been pretty successful on. So it goes back to what we call our physical revitalization budget. So I've just celebrated the 100th anniversary of the center 2 years ago, so we're actually 102 years old. Broke ground in the first building there in 1917. So I don't have a lot of buildings from 1917, but I got a lot of old buildings. So we developed this revitalization plan actually about 10 years ago, but I've been shepherding it the last over 4 years now, going on 5 as center director. I've gotten, just got approved in the FY20 budget, my 5th new building in a little over 10 years. That's almost 2 every year. That's pretty unheard of, and with a fairly small construction of facilities budget at the agency level, with 10 other centers competing for that budget. So the components of how that made. First, we had a great plan that could sell that vision. And it was constant communication. You can't give up. You got to keep selling the plan. And the plan was based on, okay, requirements. It was requirements driven. I need this building to do this for you, the agency, that you want to do this mission, right? So it's making that connection to the person with the dollars to what you're going to do for them, and get them to share that vision of what you're going to do. So and we've been very successful. So five new buildings in about 10 years I would argue that no other center in the agency has done that. So again, it's that, get that compelling vision and get the stakeholder to buy in, to say, okay, this is important for both of us. This is why you should invest in this. This is why you should contribute to this. Making that case and doing it consistently, and getting out in the public and getting public support for those things. So, as I said earlier, I see that's a huge part of my job as center director. That would be a huge part of my job as the college president. And I'm very comfortable working in that environment, even though it's not fundraising, a little different, but the same mechanisms I think translate very well. So.
Can you envision some scenarios in this much smaller environment here where you would be doing the kind of outreach to individual people or small organizations, or just cultivating the whole spirit of philanthropy, and what kinds of things would you see happening?
Well, as I've said numerous times today, part of this is a contact sport. You got to get out there and talk to people, and just understand the value and why this is an important thing for Eastern Shore. So present that vision of what the college can be on the Eastern Shore. And if you care about the shore and you want to be part of that vision to make it happen. So it's a lot of talking to groups, getting out and talking to individuals, talking to businesses, talking to community groups, chambers of commerce, all of those things that I kind of do on a regular basis in my current job. So great question.
Do you think they've been talking about, we'll ever have free community college, and you don't have to fundraise, you can spend your time doing fun things?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm probably not, I won't speculate on that. Yeah.
Not so much a question as a comment.
Okay.
My name's Caroline Bott, and I run Congresswoman Elaine Moria's office here on the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, very good.
And so last month, she met with Dr. Greer, and she's very interested in bringing entrepreneur and new businesses economic development to the shore.
Yeah.
And so she meets with a lot of folks in the shipbuilding industry in
Yep.
particular is the one that she highlighted, and she said, you know, so much of this work doesn't have to be done, and actually can't be done. They're running out of space and facilities in the Hampton Roads area, and so she keeps saying,
Yeah.
well, let's bring that to the
Yeah.
shore. Can we bring that to the shore? So again, not so much a question as a comment that she's really interested in trying to expand those opportunities and identify, you know, whether it's, you know, returning motors, rewiring, or what do you
Yeah,
call it?
yeah.
That was one
Rewiring.
example that,
Yeah.
yeah, that she gave, that's something that could be something that we could do in workforce development here and train here on the shore, have that business here on the shore,
Sure.
but would be supporting the industries across the bay. So I think, you know, part of the challenge is that mix between what Mr. Cody said about, you know, supporting our economic bases here on the Eastern Shore and the programs and things that make us a viable community, but also bringing in some new dollars and other things. So I just, you know, again, wanted to make that
Nice,
comment and share that with you, that, you know, when you're thinking outside of the box, you know, that's another place to look.
Very good. And I was just up there last week on the Hill and met with my congresswoman in my current capacity. But yes, and I think I've got her coming to the center here at the end of the month. Maybe
Yeah, work week's in May.
Yeah, okay, very good. So, yeah, so that's a great idea. I think all, you know, again, this is the kind of challenge is gonna require lots of different ideas, looking both on the revenue side and the cost side, and looking for bringing different things in and yeah, so all those things. And I know she's a big supporter. So, thank you.
Yeah, and an important point for everybody here, not pertaining to the interview, so to speak, but she's ready to make the call to arms as far as these subsets, digital shipbuilding, or something else that she mentioned.
Yeah.
So we appreciate Caroline focusing and prioritizing, Lori being able to bring some of those ideas here where they really have got an overflow of some of those opportunities across the bay.
Yeah, and the whole digital shipbuilding is something I've, this whole digital transformation, I know we've actually reached out to Newport News Shipbuilding, and they're trying to share some activities there, so yeah, it's a great thing, so thanks.
Well, sorry I'm saying that, but I know this sounds radical probably, but like Mr. Bettis was talking about, if you bring students from away, we always have trouble with housing, you know, the teachers don't have housing. Could you use this building for student housing?
I'll answer that.
Yeah,
So unfortunately, the building from a structural foundation perspective is not able to be sustained easily. So the way it works with VCCS is that the overall infrastructure division comes and they do those assessments. They're responsible for the buildings on all of the campuses. The result of that assessment, once the new building is inhabitable and all of the personal properties moved into that building, then this building will be demolished. So there's many things it could be repurposed for. We were hopeful, you know, that could in fact be sustained, but they've made the call that that's not the case. And so it doesn't hurt to ask those questions, and we probably have not made that visible except for those that have been able to come for the tours, for them to realize that we're unable to repurpose this. So. Yes, sir. Sorry, I didn't get back to your presentation.
Couple of comments and then comment on the reboot.
Okay.
Allow that I've been retired for 14 years. Things may have changed, but to clarify a little on Pat's comments,
Yeah.
unless the system has changed, there is a time process, and it can be a lengthy one with degree to your programs.
Okay.
Marketing studies, population studies, demand for the program, projected graduation rates, those things take time. But when you get to less than degree programs, certificate, or even short-term programs, the institution has a lot of flexibility and leeway, and it's a matter of simply resources there. You don't have to go through the time process, so you or whoever's selected as president here understand that If you're thinking out of the box, if you see an opportunity that is short-term, that you're not talking about a 2-year degree program, you can implement and you can do it fairly fast, unless the procedure has changed since I've retired.
Well,
You
and
just say, no,
and
it's
maybe you
not.
could do those in parallel, so you could
Yes.
do that and then pursue the longer time 2-year program in parallel.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
the second point I wanted to ask.
Just a real quick to that, just
Yes.
so everybody's aware, one of the things that I think is a positive of the reboot is it's not just impactive of the Eastern Shore Community College. All of the other colleges, unfortunately, are experiencing the decline in enrollment. And it's a wake-up call for everybody in terms of what do we need to do to better right the ship, to better operate, to be resourceful for our citizens. And so as a result of that, the Chancellor's Office has identified, we've got overriding accreditation criteria we have to adhere to, but to the extent we need to become more efficient, it's a wake-up call for the overall system. So hopefully, while some of those things may have over time gotten worse, not as business-like as you'd otherwise hope, hopefully there is improved efficiency, so.
Reboot, you asked what
Yeah.
do we know about it?
Yeah.
All I really know is what I have read online.
Okay.
But I did read enough to know, as a former administrator, one of their objectives or goals is to reduce administrative
Sure.
cost. And that's one that raises a real flag with me.
Uh-huh.
I worked with this institution from before it was a community college, and it's a 2-year branch of the University of Virginia, from the time it became a community college on. So I was here for 35 years. This institution, I don't think was ever overstaffed administratively. It's always had a bare bones staff, and as an example, when I was Dean of Student Services, I was the only dean among the 23 colleges that actually administered the financial aid program because we simply didn't have the staff here. We didn't have a financial aid officer to do it. I did that for about 5 years, the only dean in the system. As president, I never had the kind of administrative staff, assistants or others that other presidents did. I was always more of a hands-on president.
Sure.
So when they talk about reducing administrative costs, I think this is going to be a real challenge to do that. Like, frankly, getting enrollment or other things up. I'm not saying they can't be done,
Yeah.
but when you're bare bones to start with,
Yeah.
and you reduce, you're not simply getting rid of fat. It's a matter of which is the least painful,
Mhm.
least disastrous
Mhm.
reduction.
And not cut those things that are actually helping you grow your revenue. It's tough.
Enough, I've said enough.
No.
No,
No,
we
no.
appreciate the participation, we appreciate the comments.
Absolutely.
We've got about 5 minutes
Okay.
to make sure we maintain consistency
Okay.
with other candidates. Ms. Breach?
Larry Breach, I'm a retired farmer, and I'm concerned about leadership and vision.
Okay.
So my first questions would be more of a personal nature, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What is an incorrect assumption other people have of you?
Okay. That I'm a nerdy rocket scientist. And I don't like to have a good time, and I spend all my time reading technical journals and such.
And how would you define your paradigm for progress?
Paradigm?
Your paradigm for progress?
Yeah. Well, if I understand the question, so I would say personal progress or just in any job, or in
Your paradigm for progress.
Okay.
How do you perceive progress? How
Okay.
would you define it? How would you go about
Yeah, okay.
effecting progress?
Okay. So I think you have to define what that progress looks like. Progress, just because you're moving down a path doesn't necessarily doesn't define progress. So you have to have some end states and some goals you're trying to accomplish. So I always put a definition of progress in terms of, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? Right? Just driving down the road without a destination is not necessarily progress unless that is your goal, that you just want to drive up and down the road, and then that could be progress. I don't know whether that answers your question.
No, it's your answer to,
Yeah, sure,
and that's, I'm trying to decide,
No, that's
trying
good.
to understand you.
That's good.
Because you talked about communication and
Yeah.
being able to go back and forth.
Mhm.
And often we look at a 360 revolving on, how communication goes back and forth.
Mhm.
I'm interested in knowing your feelings on a comprehensive VOTEC here.
Comprehensive.
Comprehensive VOTEC. In other words, where I come from, we had 7 schools went
Sure.
together,
Uh-huh.
and we had what's a comprehensive VOTEC. The kids went there all day. They got their academics
Uh-huh.
and they got their hands-on training.
Sure.
Now, in our conversation with Larry Fink, one of the things he was emphatic is this country's not teaching people how to make something.
Sure.
We're interested in maybe the glamour jobs, but try to get your toilet fixed.
Yeah.
Get a little roof repair
Yeah.
or some masonry.
Yeah.
So when we had, and you talked about hospitality, we had that too. We don't have a real comprehensive VOTEC here.
So I think that full spectrum, so not everything is in the term I just used, not everything requires rocket science PhD. It's a full spectrum, and so that's a critical part of what the community college should offer. Now, you got to define, and again, what are the local needs here on the shore? I mean, we're serving the community on the shore, but I would think that's a critical part of the services that the community college ought to offer. It should be that full spectrum of things, whether it's a 2-year degree into a job, a 2-year degree to a 4-year degree, certificates, license on the VOTEC type jobs. So if I'm understanding your
Well,
question.
we put together
Yeah.
that we should have been graduating our high school seniors with a 2-year associate's degree.
Okay.
And we put that program together
Okay.
in school. And we had, of course, the 17 curriculums that we had out there. And we ended up turning from a poor rural school district into one of the top 50 high schools that work in the country.
Okay.
So it's a need, it's there, it's defined. So finally, my
Yeah.
last
No,
one is,
that's good.
how would you envision the academic experience for your faculty under your administration?
Rewarding. How would the faculty experience the academic? Yeah, so if in a short, they would be a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment and reward in changing people's lives. But I'm not sure I'm answering your. I think I've missed your question.
Well, you would be the leader.
Yeah.
And you would be, at the top of the
Sure.
pyramid.
Sure.
So it would all fall back on you as to how you would define an academic experience for a faculty. Now, some faculty may create a problem, but others, how would you empower your faculty? How would you improve their overall experience? How would you give them fulfillment? I mean, we look at Maslow's hierarchy, we're here, but we have people who want to teach because they love to teach.
Sure.
Will they have the opportunity, or will you support them in the role to teach? Will we look at new curriculums? We talked about solar, wind. We have a tremendous opportunity and resources that's undervalued. If we look at holistic resource management, we're not even tapping into the basics. I mean, agriculture here is grossly underperforming. We can do a whole lot more. I mean, we've got the poultry industry that's needs to expand and can expand. We've got the production agriculture that needs to expand. Visiting with NRCS, it's like, oh, and yet we're not training, we're not teaching the most important segment of our society, the agricultural industry, on how to be better, more efficient producers.
Sure.
There's not even an ag program here, if I'm aware of.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm not.
You talk rural, I mean,
Yeah,
you don't
no,
get any
that's
more
fine.
rural than ag.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's-
I'm talking as an old farmer, but I mean, we've seen
Yeah.
many things happen that it'll come back to agriculture or some other industry.
Yeah, well, and I think there are opportunities there. One of the things, taking, combining, helping agriculture with advances in collecting data from unmanned aerial systems, looking at, land conditions, soil moisture, things like that. I think there's opportunities to combine those types of activities and serve the needs. And agriculture, obviously a big industry on the Eastern Shore. You're saying it's underperforming? I don't know. But,
No,
yeah, but,
thank you.
yeah, no, thank you. Very thought-provoking questions. That was good. Thank you.
Time for one more question. Thank you, Mr. Breach.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other question?
That was a good one.
Okay. Anything else you'd like them to know as we wrap up here? In a minute?
Well, first of all, thanks for coming out. As I said, you know, part of what I see, the job president is interacting with the community. And so this was a great first step of hearing what your concerns are, hearing possible solutions. So thank you for that. I would say that if I am selected president, I would make sure there was constant, frequent communication with the community to understand what the needs are. That's, again, what I'd see part of my job is. So thank you. And hopefully I'll have the opportunity to deal with you again. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. So, importantly for us, while there's many questions today that were more about the institution than the potential candidate, that's healthy. We had our town hall approximately 6 months ago to talk about the assessment process, resultingly the reboot process. That led to excellent ideas that were incorporated, and we've established committees. The point about career and technical centers and joint vocation, we have a joint workforce committee that's now met, I think, 6 or 7 times in helping to take down the silos with the overall school systems, some of the staffs on that committee, board members on that committee. What can we do to further the career and technical vocations here on the shore, given the community needs, some of the overtones of David's responses, without him even being aware that those committees have been meeting for 6 months. Correspondingly as well, the healthcare careers that we have here, there's a gap between employer needs and what we were providing as a college. The Joint Healthcare Career Committee has as well met 6 or 7 times, resultingly in some very solid curriculums that we look to establish. Dr. Bivens there in the back is chairing that committee. We appreciate his volunteerism and helping to bring those things to the table that really are needs in this community. So check out our website. The overall transparency of the reboot process is available for everyone, whether you're faculty, staff, students, the community. You can get a good gauge on where things are as we go through this re-engineering. And importantly, it's very vital for this process that we get your feedback on the candidates that you all have been able to interact with. So go on the website, fill out the feedback survey that we have. Resulting in all that information will be accumulated, provided as we roll forward towards the end of the week to make, you know, probably arguably one of the greatest decisions the Eastern Shore's had in the last couple of decades with the placement of this president. So, so we thank you for your input. We thank you for being a vital part of our process. And please provide us your feedback. So Dr. Bowles' comment period will be open until 4 tomorrow afternoon. 4:30. Tomorrow afternoon. And so don't wait till then. Don't procrastinate like I would. You know, fill it out. And then if you prefer a hard copy, you can see Judith as you depart. She'll hand you a hard copy. And we look forward to receiving, you know, what your sense is. Okay? We look forward to hopefully seeing you here tomorrow at 2:30 as we wrap up with Dr. Schaefer. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you.
It does.
Okay, great.